Hey there, today I'm going to show you how I created this concrete coffee table. Let's head out to the garage to get started. We're going to start by building the legs out of 2x4s. You're going to want to cut 12 pieces at 20 inches. Let's get to it. Now we're going to rip off all of these rounded edges. Now we can glue them together in pairs to make pseudo 4x4s. Alright, so now we're going to cut out the top, and I'm going to be using OSB for that. However, I would have preferred to use plywood, but all of the plywood at my Home Depot was extremely warped, and so the OSB was nice and flat, but if you have straighter plywood, go ahead and use that. Let's get to it. Alright, now that we have all 6 of our blocks nice and sanded, everything looks really nice, we can cut them down to size on the miter saw. Alright, so I just finished cutting all 4 of my legs to size. Each of them are 15 inches long. I was then messing around with the location of the legs, and I ended up deciding to do 4 inches in from this side and 8 inches in from this side. I now know the distance between the legs, which is 16 inches, and I can cut my last 2 cross braces to size. Alright, now that the table is pretty much assembled, the last step is to add all the Durock. Now that we have the cement board on, I'm going to apply cement board tape around all of the seams, and this will help to prevent cracking later down the line. You're going to want to go over each and every seam with this tape, and you want to be liberal with your application because it's better to use a little too much than not enough. And you're going to want to pay the most careful attention to the corners, as those are the most prone to cracking. And as you can see here, I end up applying multiple layers of the tape over the corners. I found the best way to do the corners is to do one horizontal piece connecting the sides, and then one piece on either side of that wrapping from the top to the bottom, and that way you get the tightest joint. Alright, so now it's finally time to do our concrete. I flipped the table upside down because we're going to do the underside first, and we're going to be using Henry Feather Finish to do our concrete. I'm going to be mixing it up in this paint tray. I have some drywall knives to spread it around. I've used this concrete patch on a variety of other projects. I'll try and link some down in the description, but it's just a very versatile product and very inexpensive at the same time. You're going to want to mix about 2 parts of the powder to 1 part water, and this is the rough consistency of what you're looking for. started on the underside of the table in case I made any mistakes, but this stuff is pretty forgiving. You just kind of spread it around and there isn't really much of a learning curve. It just kind of depends on what pattern you like. Also, completely covering the sides with the concrete can be a bit tricky. I find it best to do it when the table is upside down and to put on multiple coats and kind of use this technique here. And then it was finally on to the top. As you can see, I still have to do a few more coats on the sides as they're partially filled but not all the way. Because the top is going to see a lot more wear and tear and also just be seen a lot more, I took more care and precision when applying this to the top. I made sure that I had at least 1/8 of an inch of coverage on all surfaces of the top, sometimes being even a little bit more. I also made sure to pay careful attention to the corners and build those up a little bit. As I mentioned before, those are pretty prone to cracking later down the line. And as I was applying the concrete, I also had to think about the design. You could do this a variety of ways and techniques. You could spread it all in the same direction to make it look a little bit more uniform, but I wanted mine a bit more organic and free flowing, so I made sure to come back and spread it around in different directions and with different patterns. And you can see here I'm even going back over the part of the patch that had already dried, and I'm honing the surface and kind of giving it a different texture. And the part of the table that I'm working on right now is actually my favorite part of the finished table. The technique I'm using is actually giving it some of this zebra-like pattern that you'll see a little bit later on. I then came back with my orbital sander with about 150 grit to smooth everything out and to make the corners a little bit less bulbous. After letting the table fully cure, I brought it inside and flipped it upside down to apply some wood conditioner to the legs, and then I applied Early American stain on top of that. And you can see here that the inside middle of the table is actually unfinished on the bottom. You can finish this if you want, but I figured I didn't need to since you'll never see it. I then applied some satin polyurethane to the legs, let those dry, and then I could apply some concrete sealer to the underside. Alright, we're nearly there. We just need to apply the concrete sealer to the top now. Let's get to it. That's going to be a wrap on this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something along the way. I was honestly a bit skeptical about how the project would turn out as I wasn't sure how durable the concrete would be. But to my surprise, it actually has held up really well. People have put their feet up here and glasses and drinks. Something has actually been spilled on it as well, but it held up really well and I'm now very confident that it'll last a very long time. Without using a concrete slab, we were able to get the same look for a lot less money, and actually the table is a lot lighter so it's easier to move around too. And it makes a great home for our little dog here, Olive, as it's kind of become her den and she loves to hang out under here during the day. Whenever we have guests over, this is one of the main pieces of furniture that they're drawn to, and they're surprised when I told them that I actually built it myself, especially for that cost. Some even said they would pay over $1,000 for something like this in their own home. If you have any questions about the build, please leave them down in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. I'm also going to leave all the links to the tools that I use down in the description. And if you enjoyed the video, please smash that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as we post a new DIY video every single Saturday. We just finished up a complete bathroom renovation series and we have a lot more projects on our list, so get subscribed and stay tuned. And as always, thanks for watching and happy building. See you next week.
Places, people, places.